the 2023, 2024, and 2025 Yankees have all at about this time of year had a 6-16 or worse. And it just made me start to think, like, why are they having it? And I'm going to give a theory and let you run with it because it's you loved running with my crazy theories.
Hmm.
John, we use the term friend of the show a lot. There is
Yeah.
no greater friend of this show and really just good friend to both of us for a long, long time than Michael Kay.
Yes, he's a terrific guest. That's why he has a radio show and has had one for decades in New York, beyond being the Yankee broadcaster. And the Yankees are the story right now, frankly. And he's right in the middle of it. And he does provide strong opinions. He's not a fanboy, he's a professional broadcaster. And we're happy to have him back. He is I guess, the biggest friend of the show, shall we say. It's probably the fourth or fifth or sixth time he's been on. I don't know. We don't keep score, but I guess we can do the research on that. But he is
Yes,
number one.
we'll go into the stacks and see if we can find out who's been on the most. We'll ask him about some fanboy behavior that he's been dealing with in the last week, but obviously, mainly we'll talk to him about the state of the Yankees, which hasn't been very good recently. You and I will talk about the Subway Series and the two teams at the top of the show. We'll play hit and error at the end. If you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, look, we're always trying to be timely here, and there's nothing more timely than coming on an off day after the two New York teams played. The Mets won the series 2-1. The two teams finished tied for the year 3-3. They'd have to play in a World Series to break that. And it felt a little worse about the Yankees getting there if you've watched them play for the last 3.5 weeks. A time in which they're now 7-16. They were 6-16. Pretty much everything has broken down at one time. John, if I had to ask you about what do you play on the network? Concern, Panic, Doom on MLB Network with Brian Kenny. Where are you on the Yankees right now?
Well, they're certainly not doom. I think they're pretty close to panic, at least for me. It's funny, we go back and forth each week. We're more worried about one team or the other. This week, it is clearly the Yankees. There was no question about that. I gave the Mets credit in the paper today, and I think they deserve it for winning four in a row and 4 out of 6 against two, quote unquote, good teams, the Brewers and the Yankees. Considering their pitching situation, where there throwing a bullpen game, it seems like every other day, and they're calling up guys that I've barely heard of, much less the fans. But the Yankees, really, nothing great is really happening right now. I mean, they escaped with a 6-4 win with Fried going against the Met bullpen game. That's not that impressive. Uh, Really, I mean, the Clark Schmidt, presuming to be out for the year now. That is not good news. The bullpen has not looked good. They have not played great fundamental baseball. Obviously, Judge has been amazing. Goldschmidt and Bellinger have been exactly what they'd hoped for. Fried's been even better than that, but I am very, very worried. I guess that's not one of the choices, concern, panic, doom, but I put it at worry.
John, I'm with you, and it's interesting because the thing that concerned me most about them to open the season, and they solved initially, is what concerns me now, which is starting pitching. Because I think the bullpen problems are an echo of starting pitching problems, where you're not getting deep, and you're not able to like stay away from your main guys regularly, and they're overused, and has that happened to a few guys. So the season begins, and Cole's out for the year, Hill's out for the first 4 months, Clark Schmidt isn't there. Then Schmidt comes back, Stroman goes down. But Will Warren did a pretty good job so far this year, and Ryan Yarbrough stepped in and really helped them, and they were going round and round. Well, now Hill's still out. No Cole this year. Schmidt is out for the rest of the year. Hill won't be back until maybe the last week of July or early August. Yarbrough until the first or second week of August. And to me, they're going to probably bring up Cam Schlitter to start a game either Tuesday or Wednesday against Seattle, who's suddenly breathing on their neck on wild card type stuff. And I'm not sure that this version of their rotation could hold it together. And I get it, John. You and I have been through the cycle of trade deadlines for years and years. Teams do not act early. I think the Yankees have to push it and see, even if they're going to get a second starting arm at some point, can they get a Charlie Morton stopgap, short term, who you feel like, hey, he's a major league starting. He's pitched really well now for about 5 weeks. Charlie Moore, like I'm just using him as a name. I'm sure that will get
Good.
advertised like crazy, but it's just somebody who isn't going to be the main starter you get. Just because, like, who knows what you get? Hill has no track record. Plus, he's coming back from a big injury. We don't know what Warren's going to look like through September. Like, Rodon has started to go the wrong way. Even Fried started to go the wrong way a little. They need, I think, in the right now, act and get another arm you trust. Otherwise, the cascade to the bullpen, which is a problem you and I have agreed on, is a problem.
Yeah, I mean that would be nice, but it'd probably be a major overpay even for Charlie Morton or somebody who's been just okay this year. He certainly has been better than recent, and I know that you're choosing that as an example. I mean, certainly if you're going to get a guy who you feel could be part of your playoff rotation, you're going to be paying crazy for him at this moment, right? You're going to have to probably wait toward the deadline. That's the likely scenario. I'm with you. I'd love to see it now, but I think it'll be toward the end. And even at the end, it's going to be an overpay because this is going to be a big seller's market. We are not going to see the likes of obviously Skeens out there. I don't believe Sale there's any chance. I don't see Peralta being traded. I mean, it could be proven wrong, but I don't see that. I think possibly Seth Lugo could be the best guy out there. And even that's probably less than 50-50 at this point because I think the Royals are pretty committed to trying to win. Edward Cabrera might be the best pitcher. I mean, I keep hearing about Alcantara. His ERA is close to 7. I mean, really, are you giving up big prospects? I saw somebody suggest that the Cubs should give up Cade Horton, Ballesteros, who's a good hitting prospect, a catcher, and 2 other big prospects for Alcantara. Are we watching the games? I mean, if that's the price, I'm sitting it out and taking my chances with what I have. You can't do that. And I think the GMs are generally not like that and not going to do that. I'm actually more worried about the bullpen than anything right now. I mean, it has not been good since I heard from the scout that he didn't think it was very good. And, I know the scout said to me, they got the same problem as everybody else has got except for the Padres, and they don't have a great bullpen. I mean, I maybe throw the Giants in there. Maybe there's 1 or 2 others, Twins, maybe. They don't have hard throwers in that. They have 1 left-hander in Hill, who's done okay. And they don't have hard throwers. They do have guys who strike guys out. Cruz is a big loss at the moment, but we got to be a little bit worried about Weaver, who was certainly their best guy last year. And I mean, Leiter. Some of these guys do strike guys out, but they are not hard throwers. And I think teams don't feel like the Yankees will get through the playoffs with the bullpen that they do have, especially since they're now exhausted.
Yeah, John, I'm with you. I think they need no less than 2 outside bullpen arms. And then if everything went perfect and their starting rotation added a guy and got Hill back or whatever, maybe Yarborough ends up in their bullpen as a second lefty, a longish guy later on. But that's a lot of hoping and dreaming for later on. John, I wonder on one other Yankee thing before we flip to the Mets. I'm writing about this for our Plus that comes out early Tuesday morning for the New York Post. The Yankees just had a period where they went 6-16. So I was just curious, like, how often does that happen to the Yankees? And like what the results are. And generally, the Yankees have survived. It's happened 7 times since 1995, including 1995, when the year of the first wild card they made it. They won the World Series in 2000. They finished 6-16, and but that was an historic team. The '03 team that Boone the winning the pennant had a 6-16. Joe Girardi's last team in 2017 had a 6-16. But what stands out to me is the 2023, 2024, and 2025 Yankees have all at about this time of year had a 6-16 or worse. And it just made me start to think, like, why are they having it? And I'm going to give a theory and let you run with it because it's you loved running with my crazy theories. I think that the Yankees are a worse and worse fundamental team by month, every month in 23, 24, and 25. It's almost like they get exhausted with doing the routine because doing the routine is boring. It takes a lot of work. And after a while, I think they just say, hey, our power arms and power bats, let's just let that win the game. And I do think the fact that Aaron Boone, and again, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. So maybe the riot act is being read by Aaron Boone. Maybe Aaron Judge is Jorge Posada behind closed doors, or Chili Davis, or David Cohn, or CeCe Sabathia, or Brett Gardner. But that's not my belief system. I believe that they are everything's got to be positive, and to bring negativity into their world is self-defeating. And I think in general that's probably true. But I think that when they start to get sloppy, the leadership of the team, the player leader and the manager leader needs to be very hard on them.
Well, that was great research by you, and it's amazing they've overcome that in almost all of those seasons. That you can go 6-16 and still make the playoffs, and they generally do almost every year. So I give them credit on that score. I certainly don't think that Boone is particularly tough on them. We're not there behind closed doors. We did hear, thanks to Jazz, that he told them that they were the best team in the league. So that wasn't particularly hard on them at that moment. But, that's just a snippet out of probably tens of talks that he's given the team. But I'm with you. I mean, it all kind of manifested itself last year in the World Series at the very end. And they were at their worst fundamentally in October last year. So, and they have not been particularly good in recent weeks. Since I heard that from the scout again, that was his second biggest or third biggest concern behind the bullpen was one of the things. So yeah, I think you're onto something there, and good research by you.
John, the other side is the Mets had their own kind of 6-16 period. By the way, they had one last year and worse, and they got to game 6 of the NLCS. So, like especially with 3 wild cards, this stuff is survivable if you get it together. The Mets won 4 in a row before, a point you drew well earlier. They kind of had like a pitching tryout camp on Sunday against Max Fried, and they didn't win that game. Big week for me for the Mets, John, because at the end of this week in Kansas City, I think they're going to get Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea back. And that should put them in much better stead starting pitching wise, even with all the injuries they've taken on. I wonder what you think about kind of the state of the Mets heading into the All-Star break.
Yeah, I feel much better about the Mets over the last week. To have survived that week and gone to 4-2, I think is a pretty excellent job by Carlos Mendoza and the rest of the Mets. I didn't expect them to do well against the Brewers or the Yankees, frankly, and I think a lot of people out there were expecting the worst as well. You got to feel better about them, and certainly in terms of talent, probably the two most talented starters on the team, Senga and Manaea. That is huge that they'll be back. Now, of course, Manaea's missed the whole year. And when he comes back, will have been out more than a month. But the expectations are big for them, and they should be. Manaea was their best starter last year. Senga was their best starter the year before that, and I think the Mets should feel pretty good about things right now.
Yeah, John, before we flip out of this segment, maybe we should do this each week with both teams. And we've been pretty clear what we think the Yankees need, just because you and I will be so involved up to and through the trade deadline. I think we're both in agreement. Is it bullpen for the Mets? Bullpen, and more
Yeah,
bullpen?
I do think so. I mean, Diaz is all-star. He's worthy of it. He's been great. Yeah, I'm always a big believer in the bullpen, especially now when the starters are going 5 innings generally. I think that's the way to go. I mean, you got to hope Senga and Manaea can hold out. I think they will look at the rotation as well. But again, it's a real seller's market. The Mets are not a team, I believe, that is willing to give up big prospects. We shall see. They had a shot at Crochet. I think they would have had to give up both Sproat and Jet Williams and a couple more, and they didn't do it. There isn't going to be a Crochet out there, I know, but you're still going to be talking about these better prospects, even for lesser pitchers at this point. So I'm not sure they do it. Tyrone Taylor's done a great job defensively in center field. He appears like he's hit the wall. It feels like he hasn't hit like he did in Milwaukee, but defensively he's fantastic, obviously, and certainly can live with it. But we don't know when Siri's coming back right now. So, I might look at center field. I mean, I know that McNeil goes out there and plays it, and give him credit for being versatile. But I might look at center field, somebody who can hit. I'm not sure who beside Mullins from the Orioles is out there, but I might look at that as well.
Yeah, it's a problem for the Yankees at third base and the Mets with center field. Those are two areas that there's not a lot of depth in the sport. So as you look at the trade deadline, it's hard to find it. And John, you hit I was going to ask a follow-up question to you, and you already hit it, which is like, is it in David Stearns's purview to kind of push chips in, especially for relief pitchers and other things? I mean, I've seen him trade Josh Hader at this time of year when his team was contending in Milwaukee. I haven't seen him do a big thing, and I try to make a case in Sunday's paper. Look, the Yankees could be under great pressure, the Phillies, the Mariners, others. Just the Mets have had a bad history of being serially good year after year. And there's an opportunity here to follow an NLCS surprise run with something that's stronger now that you have Soto, you got Alonso back. So I do think there's a good deal of pressure that David Stearns will say he isn't feeling because he's going to stick with his principles. But I do think there's a good deal of pressure on Stearns / the Mets to kind of fix what's wrong and make sure you get in the playoffs in the best stead this year.
Yeah, and he certainly has the owner who's willing to spend. But like I said, I don't think that he is a guy who wants to give up big prospects. He hasn't in the past. Certainly, he was with a small market team where you don't generally do that for most of his career. But he's now been here a couple years. So I don't know that he's going to take that chance. I mean, I don't see another Derek Jeter in that organization. I don't think it's going to be that kind of a risk to give up a Williams or a Sproat or somebody of that ilk. They've got guys I'm sure they've picked out that they think that they could possibly trade, but it's going to be tough. It's really not going to be easy because there's probably going to be 20 buyers and 10 sellers. It's going to be 2-1. And right now we only have probably 6 that we can point to are very likely sellers. So I don't even know if we're going to get to 10. So it's going to take an overpay. It's going to take a strong stomach to do it. And we'll see. Maybe they think they're good enough as is. I mean, like I said, I feel better about the Mets right now than I do about the Yankees. But I'm assuming that Mania and Senga will be good when they come back.
Yeah, well, we'll get another feel for what somebody thinks of the Yankees when their broadcaster and the host of his own show on ESPN Radio, Michael Kay, joins us next on the show. I don't have the official data in front of me, but I'm pretty positive that nobody has been a greater friend to the show than Michael Kay, the wonderful announcer for the Yankees. He has his own show on ESPN Radio. He joins us all the time at moments that feel like the right time for Michael Kay to be on. And Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Anytime, guys.
And Mike, I say it's the right time because we just got done with the Subway Series, and obviously you're broadcasting the majority of the Yankee games. This is where I'd like to start is the Yankees just finished a period. They won yesterday. Before that, they had lost 16 to 22. That has happened to the Yankees over the last 30 years in good years. 95, they made the playoffs. 2000, they won the World Series. 03, they won a pennant. But you know what's strange, Mike? It happened like 4 times previously over 30 years, and it's now happened 3 times in a row. 2023, 2024, and 2025 to the Yankees, where at about this time of year, they have hit this wall in particular. 2 years ago, they didn't get out of it and missed the playoffs. Last year, they got out of it and made the World Series for the first time in 2009. Do you have any thoughts, theories, why this is about the time every year the Yankees smash into a wall and play as bad as you can play?
I really don't have any solid, data or why that would happen other than that. Playing for the Yankees, I think Cameron Maben is the one who told me pinstripes are heavy. And maybe by June, with the weather turning and stuff like that, they start to feel fatigue, all the expectations, everything that's on them. Not making excuses, obviously, because it's an easier run for them if they don't stumble in June. But this time, I think what they've gotten themselves into is by stumbling in June, they've let 2 other teams get right back into it. And, the Red Sox, they haven't been able to shake them, although the Red Sox have tried. And now, in other past Junes, they followed it up really by playing 500 the rest of the way. And I think if they do that, there's a chance they might not make the playoffs if they just rebound by playing 500. They've got to be better.
Yeah, what do you think, Mike? I'm pretty worried about this team. Without Schmidt now, the bullpen hasn't been great. They've obviously Bellinger and Goldschmidt have helped the defense, but the fundamentals still don't seem great, at least to the scouts. What do you think? Is this team going to make it to the finish line as a playoff team?
Well, I actually addressed this on my ESPN radio show where I said, when Boone came in after the fourth game in Toronto and said, we're the best team in the league, they're not. They're not. The Astros are better. The Tigers are better. There are teams that are probably equal to them. And he said that before he found out about Schmidt. So I look at this, and I don't think that you could stand pat and expect them to just get better. I think they need to get two arms in the bullpen. I think they at least need one starter of import. And I think they have to get a right-handed hitting third baseman. That's a lot of stuff to get without emptying out your talent system in the minor league. So I'm not sure if Brian's going to be able to pull it off, but sitting back and waiting for things to turn on this team, when Marcus Stroman's now your third starter, I simply think that they've run into too many problems. And the bullpen, I think, is the biggest problem of all. I've said this to so many managers that I've talked to over the years. It seems like the game plan now throughout Major League Baseball, get 5 1/3 innings out of your starter and then finish it up with the bullpen. I think it's impossible to ask your bullpen every single day to get 11 or 12 outs. You're going to burn them out. And I think you're seeing that with the Yankees. Some guys are just exhausted. And I just don't think that that's the way Major League Baseball could make it work. You've got to somehow train your starters to at least go be 7 innings. If they're going to get 5 out of them all the time, you are going to see what's happening to this bullpen.
Mike, I think you could have said the same exact stuff about the Mets. What happened when they went into their tailspin recently is their starters were pitching well, but not long. And that bullpen was in the game for 9, 12, 15 outs constantly. And there was some reverberations from it. Mike, you know this better than even me, not only because you're around, but you're on a talk radio show daily. We should mention 1 to 3 on ESPN. Everyone should listen to Mike. At times like this, the touchstone is always fire somebody, which is either Cashman or Boone, right? And usually in season, it's much more on Boone. And then just to kind of like say it again, an Aaron Boone team has now swooned at this time of year, 3 straight years. Do you see a leadership problem here at all? Or what Aaron Boone, go, whatever you want.
Well, I mean, I'm getting a lot of that on the radio, but I've gotten that over the years. For some reason, Aaron Boone does not float Yankee fans' boats. And they don't like Brian, but I think they think that Brian is untouchable. He's not going anywhere. He'll go somewhere when he wants to. I don't think the Yankees would ever relieve him of his duties. So they fixate on getting rid of Boone. I don't think Boone is the problem. We don't know what he says behind closed doors. We don't know how he relates to the players. I think the players do like him. The funny part is the cries now are so loud that, you got to make a change. And I've heard some phone calls today. Well, they should break it down and rebuild. They were in the World Series last year. I know they didn't win, but they were one of the last 2 teams standing. So they always have a team that you could say has a chance to go to the World Series. Some teams would kill for that, but that's not enough for New York. I'm sorry, maybe you think differently, Joel and John. I don't think it's a Boone problem. I just don't. I look at this right now, and I think it's a roster construction problem. This roster is very clunky. You've got 3 catchers. They're all left-handed batters. You've got a second baseman playing third base. You've got a second baseman that doesn't have range anymore, probably should be playing third base. Every day they make out a lineup, there are 3 guys on the bench that probably think they should be playing. I don't think that's the proper way to build a roster. I just don't. And I think that's the issue right now. Every lineup that Boone makes, there's an automatic debate. This guy should play. Why isn't Goldschmidt playing? How come Rice isn't playing? Dominguez didn't play yesterday. Why not? There's too many of that. There's not a consistent lineup. I think that would help the team to have a consistent lineup.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a Boone problem either. And I don't know, maybe I'm just frustrated as a writer. I don't know. He's certainly very cooperative with us, but I do hear this from fans too. Is Boone too easy on the players? You mentioned that he said that they're the best team behind closed doors, which thank Jazz Chisholm for revealing that. I'm not sure he would have ever heard that. But I mean, publicly, he's like that too. Everybody's great. Everybody does the right thing. Nobody ever makes a mistake. That's the way it feels. Maybe I'm just frustrated as a writer because we don't get the unvarnished opinions. But I mean, should he be a little tougher on these guys?
Well, the best answer I have for that, John, is that Joe Girardi criticized Gary Sanchez, and he was quickly shown the door. I just don't think that in this day and age in sports, players are going to be criticized publicly. Again, I don't know what he's doing behind closed doors. I would hope that sometimes he reads them the riot act, but I don't think it gets out to us other than if Jazz tells So the bottom line is, if you're expecting Aaron Boone to throw chum into the water like they did in Jaws, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. I mean, look at Tom Thibodeau, who didn't say boo publicly, never criticized his players, but then it comes out that they didn't like that they played too much during the season. He gets fired going to the 6th game of the Eastern Conference Finals. I just think that that's part of the job description now. Billy Martin, Earl Weaver, they're dead, but their style of managing is also dead. I don't think that you can manage your coach like that anymore in professional sports. Why do you think that Bill Belichick is in North Carolina and not at the NFL level? Players are not going to put up with that anymore. They're just not. Players run the show, and the manager has to get the most out of them in the best way he can. By being a disciplinarian, I don't think it works.
Like a basketball coach, I also think that Boone cares about the star player on the team more than anything else and being aligned with him. And as we know, you working at the Yes Network also, right, that Aaron Judge does not like negativity to infiltrate the Yankees in any way. So, like, I think that Boone understands he's supposed to be the anti-Girardi and he's supposed to keep Judge as happy as possible. And I don't know. I think every once in a while you have to be afraid of your leadership. Otherwise, it's easy to coast.
Again, I don't know what goes on inside. I don't know whether they're afraid of him or not, but you're right. He has a great relationship with Judge, and I think that's important. Your star player could get you fired. I don't think that Aaron Boone's afraid of that. But, even discussing, Aaron Boone being replaced, he just got a contract extension, and Hal Steinbrenner is not in the habit of paying people not to work. So, people could scream all they want into their phones or, onto social media. He's not going anywhere. He's just not.
What about the pen, Mike? A scout told me a couple of weeks ago he was very worried about the pen. They have struggled since then. I mean, should Weaver have gone out on an assignment to get back? I mean, I've never seen a guy get back in 2 weeks from a hamstring before, and since he came back, he's not been what he was, which was great. And I mean, is it fair to say Williams is the closer? I think when Weaver came back, I got the impression from the quotes that Boone was kind of saying it could be either one, but it feels like it's Williams. I don't know. Is that clarified that it's Williams, or he's just not saying he doesn't want to insult Weaver? At this point, I don't know how you make Weaver the closer at this moment. Anyway,
I think that once Williams seems like he worked out his problems, he was acquired to be the closer, and they dreamed of Luke Weaver possibly being like Mariano in '96. That was always the game plan. I think that's still the game plan. The reason why he hasn't said that Williams is the closer, because if Williams works 2 days in a row and then the game has to be closed, you know what? Then it's going to be Weaver. But I mentioned earlier, I believe that on their shopping list they need at least 2 relievers. Well, if Luke Weaver doesn't work things out, I don't know if it's solvable right now, because Loaisiga is not the same as he was. Hamilton does not seem to have command of the slambio, which is the pitch that makes him a difference maker. So if Loaisiga is not going to be Loaisiga and Hamilton's going to struggle, and Leiter is tough, but he works in tough luck, they're in a lot of trouble, because the way the game is built right now, you need a deep bullpen. And at this point, the Yankee bullpen is not deep. And I think a lot of it hinges on Weaver straightening himself out.
Mike, I actually agree with your shopping list 100%. I think they need at least 2 relievers. I think they need at least 1 starting pitcher. And I think they need a right-handed bat who can play second or third, maybe even a little left, if need be, to get Dominguez out against lefty pitching. But there's going to be very few sellers between now and July 31st because of the extra wild cards. Would this be a gung-ho season? Obviously, I'm not with your callers. They're not selling, obviously. They're in this. They might repeat as AL champions for all we know. Would this be a gung-ho season for you with Cole out, but also another year, great year by Judge, but another year added to his age? Would you say, hey, maybe I'll keep George Lombard out of something, but everyone else, Spencer Jones, Schlitter, like, they're all available. I got to go for it.
Oh, I definitely would do that. I don't think that you think about trading George Lombard. I don't believe that. And I've always said this, Joel. I don't know if you agree with me. The most important function of a front office is scouting their own organization. They've got to know the real story. So if they think that George Lombard is going to be a true star, then okay, he gets pushed to the side. But Ben Hess, Cam Slitler, if you think that they're not going to be stars, but there are some teams out there that you can make deals with that think they're going to be special. Spencer Jones, and yeah, you definitely deal them. I don't think you could waste a season that Max Fried's having, and the sands through the hourglass on Judge. It would be criminal if you waste a season like this with him. That's why you can't break up this team and just go for it next year. This guy might have 65 home runs this year. I think you got to go for it to an extent, but you can't empty the farm system, but you have to do it judiciously. I think you have to say, okay, within the system, these are the guys that are untouchable. And then after that, make some trades.
What about the finances? Hal Steinbrenner has spent reasonably well, but he's not Steve Cohen, and they're right at the threshold that Steve Cohen taxed around $301 million right now. So everything that they're spending, they're paying another 110% tax. I got your list. I can't disagree with anything you said there. I mean, even if you start with a third baseman, you're talking about Suarez, who's making $15 million, or McMahon, who's probably making close to that, or somebody like that. And then you go to the pitchers, and they're even better paid, the ones that you're going to acquire. Does Steinbrenner have the appetite to really spend to do that laundry list of needs that you suggested?
Well, I've always heard that teams don't want to go over the Cohen tax because of the penalties that are put on more so than the money. So I've said that if the Yankees are a dollar over, they go for it. But if they are set on being at the tax and not over it, then I can understand them not doing it. And he could turn to Brian and go, you know what? You haven't spent my 301 wisely. But you also have to factor this in, John. If they don't make the playoffs, they're going to lose money. So, not lose money as an organization, but they're not going to make as much money as they would. So I think they have to do the calculus themselves. Okay, so if we add $20 million to the payroll, which essentially is 40, will we make that back by, getting to the ALDS or the ALCS? That's their decision. I don't spend other people's money. Like if Steve Cohen goes to David Stearns right now and said, that's it, I'm done. I gave you $60 million extra to get Alonso. You should be able to build a team. I wouldn't criticize Steve Cohen, and I wouldn't criticize Hal Steinbrenner either, because there's a lot of dead money of that. You've got $36 million that you spent on Cole, but supposedly they have insurance on that. So that would seem to be spendable money where you could make some moves. Again, I'm not in the finance department. I don't know what they want to spend and what they don't. But if they want to go for it, there have to be moves that are made. Because if you're going to stand pat, I'm not sure if this team could make the playoffs.
Mike, I assume that after Boone and Cashman, if we move to players, the touchstone for your callers is Anthony Volpe all of a sudden, right?
Oh, yeah.
2 spring trainings ago, I heard all the same fans say the Yankees aren't trying if they don't put him on the roster to open the season. I got the same people yelling in my face now about how they have to send him to the minors, send him to Elba, send him someplace. Do you think that Volpe it feels he's regressed at the very least? Is this who he is? And if it is he ultimately your second baseman or nothing?
Well, there's so many layers to this, because I get a lot of this as well. They should send him down or they should bench him. And I go, oh, okay. Who's playing shortstop? Peraza can't hit. Peraza might be the best defender on the team. Third, short, and second. Can't hit. You saw him yesterday. He simply can't hit. For some reason or another, I think he's a big league defender. So you don't have a replacement for Volpe. And as much as you want to say he's regressed and he doesn't look good, I'm not going to sit here and put lipstick on a pig. Joel, if you look up, he has 10 home runs and 48 runs batted in. So you take that over a full season, he's going to finish with 17 and 80, 17 and 85? That'll be one of the top 5 or 6 shortstops. He's not going to be Bobby Witt Jr. I think we could all agree it doesn't look like he's going to be that. And at this point, with the money that he's making, he's very serviceable for the Yankees. And I keep telling fans, he's the same player last year, and they made the World Series, and he happened to have a really good postseason. So I don't know what people want. I think they get jealous of Bobby Witt Jr., who was the 2nd pick in the draft. Anthony Volpe was the 30th pick in the draft. Should we be expecting more from him? Yes, probably we should. But they're going to have to decide whether or not he's a shortstop of the future.
Yeah, they're probably hoping it's at least Zach Neto, if not Bobby Witt Jr., and they're not getting that either. I'm sorry, John, I cut you off there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go next. All good. Well, let's talk about something good with the Yankees. They did make some good offseason moves. Bellinger, Goldschmidt. What are your thoughts on them so far? Joel makes this point to me so often. Bellinger was available for everybody, and it didn't seem like there were any takers. Maybe Toronto a little bit, but I mean, this guy can play every position in the outfield, plus first base, solid hitter. Seems like a terrific player. Goldschmidt, same thing, great for the team. What are your thoughts on those two?
Well, let's start with Bellinger. I said this on the broadcast on Saturday. When you look at Bellinger, you just go, that guy's a baseball player. I look at him, and I think that he is the most complete baseball player on the Yankees. Aaron Judge is the best player, but Bellinger does everything. He's a plus defender at 4 positions. He runs the bases in an extraordinarily efficient way. He's a clutch hitter. He has a 2-strike approach, which a lot of people don't. I think he's been everything they could hope for. I think they're going to have a very interesting decision during the offseason because obviously he's going to opt out. Do you want to connect with him for 5 years? I'm not sure. And although Goldschmidt has gone down a little bit, he's still an extraordinary defender at first base, makes great plays there, great in the clubhouse, real professional. I think those are 2 extraordinary moves that they made. And then obviously getting Max Fried. If they don't get Max Fried, they'd be battling right now the Orioles for last place in the East. Max Fried has been that good.
Mike, I wonder if we could shift here a little bit. You were in the news this week, at least locally.
Me? Really?
Yeah. You and Jamie Campbell, the Blue Jay, one of the Blue Jays pre and post, am I right? Announcers.
Yep.
Yeah, Michael, I'm not taking a shot at Jamie Campbell. I didn't know who Jamie Campbell was until like about 48 hours ago. So it does lead to the question of if you want to talk about the back and forth very quickly, he waved a broom in their post game after they swept the Yankees 4 games and directly took you on because I believe he misquoted you as saying to some degree that the Blue Jays aren't a first place team without giving the full scope of exactly what you did say that day. So my question is, like, say whatever you want about the situation, but in some ways, you and I have had this discussion for 15, 20 years. Is it worthwhile to get in these back and forths? You're the guy who's kind of made it, Mike. Like you're like what, maybe my most successful friend. Like I think about your humble beginnings in the Bronx. You had a dream about being the Yankee broadcaster. How many people make that kind of dream and they're there? You're an inspiration to people who want to dream. Is it worthwhile to get into these back and forths?
It's a great question. And I thought about this a lot today. I always find myself in these situations and I'm damaged. I wish I didn't act like this. I wish I didn't have to react. But, I know you come from the same sort of humble beginnings as I do. And there's a lot of street in us and we want to fight back, especially when we feel that we were wronged. So the initial thing that started it was I had said about, the Pythagorean theorem that when you look at run differential, a record should be this or that. And I also said in that same time, it was on my radio show, that the Yankees are underachieving because with their plus minus, they should have about 5 or 6 more wins. And I was essentially saying that the Blue Jays are squeezing everything they can out of the slight run differential they have. I think when I said it, they were +1, that they should be about a 500 team. And they've overachieved. And people took that and ran with it as if I was dissing the Blue Jays. I was not. I said, technically the Blue Jays are not a first-place team with these numbers. Jamie, who's a respected guy in Toronto, the thing that he said that got me was, do you have the guts to say that the Toronto's a first-place team? And I said, well, I'm not a fawning fanboy. Of course I do. The Blue Jays are in first place. They kicked the Yankees' butts for 4 games. And then the broom thing, I just said, if Jack Curry did that on the YES Network, he'd probably be fired. But it's a different market. And I just look at Toronto as a big-time city. It's cosmopolitan. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite cities in the entire world. And I said they turned it into Mayberry RFD. And maybe I went a little bit too up and in because Jamie then later last night, said, I've always had respect for Michael Kay. He survived in the toughest place to survive. And I just, that moved me that he would do that because who knows what they tell Jamie Campbell to do? It could be that's what they tell him to do. There are very few of these jobs. And I just wrote back, I said, that's a class move, Jamie. I hope that we could talk when I'm back in Toronto in 2 weeks. But just to get back to what you said, I am a damage freak. I wish that I didn't get into these fights. I wish that I could simply be a guy who does the game and just don't have Met fans coming at me and Blue Jay fans now So now it's become international hate. It wears on you. It really does. But I was talking to Alan Hahn about it, who works at our station. He said, it's because you have the radio show. If you were just on the Yankee games, you wouldn't be saying these things. You don't have to give opinions when you're the play-by-play guy. But I'm the guy on radio who gives opinions, and that rubs some people the wrong way.
By the way, I love Mayberry RFD, so I'm not sure why they took that so bad, but I enjoy it myself. And I'm not from the tough streets of Canarsie or the Bronx like myself, but I can't resist. People just don't see it when I do it because I'm just tweeting back to them or something like that. You're, a national, celebrity. So that's one of the hazards of the job. I don't think there are that many people who could resist it. And I don't blame you. And I am entertained by it. So congratulations. I've had my thing in Toronto as well, too. I think I said when Ohtani signed that it was good for baseball that he went to the marquee franchise, and they didn't take it well. And it was probably a little bit of a slap at Toronto, I guess, because they probably finished second. But part of the job, and I am entertained. So since you are, I'm in this my job a long time. You're in your job a long time, and you, as we know, you are much older than me.
Yeah.
What 5 days? What? I think I ask you this every time you're on, but you are a celebrity. So what are your plans? I know you're happy now doing the midday show instead of the afternoon show. It's better for your life and your family. Are you going to do the Yankees forever? I hope so, for one.
Well, I was actually on Andrew Marchand's podcast, and I said something like, at some point, I want to cut back. So the people in the world of aggregation, that I was going to cut back immediately. I'm not even in the middle of a long-term contract that I signed with Yes, where I'm contracted to do 135 games a year. So I always come back to the saying, God laughs at those that make plans. So I don't know what my future holds. I think that when I hit 70, if the Yankees and Yes still want me to broadcast, I think I'd still do it, but I'd probably cut that a little bit. But at that point, when I'm 70, my daughter will be in college and my son will be away from, 1 year away. And Jody doesn't want me home. Maybe I want to work more. I don't know. I still love what I do. As you get older, it wears on you physically and mentally and all that. But, at this point, I can't see cutting back anytime in the near future.
Mike, if I could combine the two things that we just talked about as a way to kind of wrap up here. And again, how do I begin to thank our friend Michael Kay, who jumps on whenever we ask?
Well, you guys jump on my radio show whenever I ask, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned you got aggregated and it was wrong. And I guess that's I think you two know me pretty well. I think my history in our business has been to be feisty. I've just surrendered to this. I don't fight back because I feel like most people are doing it just to see if I'll fight back and get a rise. And B, I don't think I could correct somebody anyway. I think if you come in with I think you and I were talking about this the other day, Mike. Everyone who's a Met fan thinks I'm a Yankee fan, and every Yankee fan thinks I'm a Met fan, and that's how I'm doing it. And I can't convince them that I didn't grow up a fan of either team. I can't convince them that I'm a selfish prick who would rather the games be played quickly with interesting storylines. And that's all I care. I'm selfish. If a player ever cares if I win the Pulitzer, I'll care if they win a freaking game.
I can confirm that he is selfish.
Yes. And a source close to the conversation has my. So I guess, Mike, as much as my instincts are, and they are, to fight, to say, come on, man, this is stupid. What are you doing here? I'm just I've become a reed in the wind because I only want to fight fights that I think I have a shot at winning. And I think that the entrenched trolling of the world means that I can't win.
No, you can't. You're absolutely right. And I don't answer people back on Twitter or X anymore. I don't. I would love to be able to pull myself away from it, but I think there's positive things in terms of news gathering, what you tweet, John tweets, and other people I follow. So to just delete the app, well, then you're throwing up your hands and say, the lunatics win. But you're right. People that hate you, you're not going to get them to like you. You're just not. So I'll give you an instance. I walked out of Citi Field on Friday. And for the most part, I got to tell you guys, the people that work at Citi Field are delightful. Met fans are always nice, always nice. I mean, the ones on on social media hate my guts. They point out that I have a big forehead and a turkey neck. I get it. I'm not good looking. That's not why I have the job. But for the most part, personally, it's all nice. But I'm walking out to my car at Citi Field, and there's this one guy who probably was overserved, and he screams at me, "Take the L, you big-headed bleep bleep." And I looked at him, I said, "Take the L? I didn't lose. I had a great broadcast. I didn't lose." I said, "When the Yankees win, I don't get the W. I don't get a share when they go to the World Series. What do you mean take the L?" I mean, they actually think that when Juan Soto has a big game that I'm upset. And I said to the guy, I said, "I'm getting in my car right now, and I'm driving to a nice house that I, burned, and my dog is going to jump on me, and my family's going to be there. My life doesn't change whether the Yankees win or lose. Now, I'm not going to lie and say, I want good things for my company. You guys want good things for the Post. So for the Yes Network, is it better when the Yankees win? Of course. You could sell advertising more. You have higher ratings. So I want that for them. But in terms of like when the Yankees lose, like if I should take the L when I walk out of the ballpark, no, I don't take the L. I feel I've won. I mean, I've been the luckiest guy in the world. So that's, I think, where it gets lost on social media, that I'm a homer. I care about whether Juan Soto does poorly. Juan Soto never treated me poorly. I like him. The fact that I reported that when they were in New York that he was miserable, it's true. I mean, Carlos Mendoza and I were talking on Saturday. He goes, "Well, he's in a much better headspace now than he was in New York." The manager said that. But again, I'm the worst human being because I pointed it out. And again, it comes back to the radio show. So I do have to fill 2 hours on the radio show, and I give my opinion.
I just want to say, take the L has a different meaning in Chicago. I wasn't sure when you first said take the L. I guess my Chicago background, of course, we call that the subway here. But,
Yes.
I appreciate that. And you are not a homer. And I think, to me, that's better. Some people like that better, but I don't like the announcers that get upset when the team doesn't do well. But so I'm with you, and I appreciate that you're a professional on the air and not a fan or a fawning fanboy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this one quick story. Before Jim Cott joined the Yankees, the Cubs wanted to hire him, and he was going to sign the deal. Cubs do a great job, and this is not the Ricketts ownership; it was previous. And right before the deal was signed, they said, we want to make sure that you're comfortable rooting for the team. He goes, "Rooting for the team?" He goes, "I don't do that." And they go, "Well, you have to root for the team if you're doing the Cub broadcast." So he turned it down. So that's why I don't look askance at anybody of the other 29 teams. There's 30 of these jobs. And if they tell you, all right, you've got to root for the Reds or you've got to root for the Cubs and you want that job, you're going to do it. I'm just lucky. The Steinbrenner family has never told me to root for the Yankees, ever told me to be a homer. So I just try to call the games down the middle.
Good for Jim Cott. To me, that's acting. That's not broadcasting. If you're not seriously rooting for the team and you're pretending on the air that you are, that's insincere. So good for him.
For the record, take the L to me, man. Take the L to the last stop, which was Canarsie, just for the record.
Okay. All right.
So I guess we all had different meetings for that. And Michael's certainly no fanboy who's ever going to pull out a broom during a broadcast and wave it around pro or con. And more important, he's our good friend for decades and decades and a good friend of this show. And Mike, ESPN Radio, 1 to 3 every day, your great radio show, the Yankee broadcaster. As always, thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
John and I, of course, thank our friend Michael Kay for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'm going to do a cop-out and do a half a hit and a half an error. I think we get better at picking all-star players. I think the fans have been very good about it. It's not like one of those years. I think what was there a year where all the Royals made it or something like that, and even well before that, all the Reds made it even before I was born a long time ago. The fans are pretty smart about picking the All-Star, and the players not as good as the fans, but not too bad. But I had a couple of people I think were snubbed that should have made it, and one of them is probably the league too. I think Christopher Sanchez should be an All-Star with the Phillies. I think the Cubs have Suzuki, who leads in RBIs and has 25 home runs, and Bush. They should be All-Stars, and I think Juan Soto should be an all-star. I know that people will knock that his runners in scoring position. He's not hitting great. Maybe he's not the best defender. I mean, he's Juan Soto. He's on the way to the Hall of Fame, and it is about the biggest stars in the game. I'd like to see him on the all-star team.
All-star team. I'm with
Right.
you, John. The stars need to be you. It's a promotional vehicle. You need to have your most famous, best players there, especially if they're even close to earning the distinction. John, I'm going to give a hit this week, and I'm going to give it to something a little bit obscure from the weekend, but probably fits my brain, as you know. If it stood out to me as much as anything, was Ronnie Mauricio's at bats in this series.
Good, right? Yeah.
He came in as this is a guy who we're wondering what happens if he doesn't play every day. Like, what will he do? Well, he came in on Saturday's game and he pinch hit off of Efros, so batting left-handed. He hit the hardest ball of the game out, like 115 miles per hour, a double. Then yesterday he comes in and from the left side against Loiza grounds a ball through the first, second hole for a base hit. And then later on against Tim Hill, batting right-handed, he hits a ball about 106 miles per hour, again through the first, second base. He's not launching, and he's just having good at-bats. And you know what it made me think, John? Look, the Mets are probably bringing Jesse Winker up as early as Tuesday's game. We're talking on Monday. Travis Jankowski is probably the move, but the Mets could say there's just less and less playing time every day. Mauricio's only started 2 of the last 8. Maybe we should send him down. He didn't play all the last year. I'd like to see him play every day. I think he's the most talented of the Vientos, Beatty, Mauricio group. And I'm curious what 200 straight up player appearances would look like for him because the athleticism, the twitch, all of it, it just like flows off of this guy. And I think he's got the highest ceiling. I get it. There's probably a lot of hit and miss in there. Maybe after 200 plate appearances, it would all look terrible. It's hard to do an audition when you're trying to win a division. But I really, you know what I think every time I watch him play, John? I want to see him play more.
Yeah, I'm with you. They better not send him down. They didn't when Vientos came back, and they play mostly the same position, although Mauricio's a little more versatile than Vientos. I mean, it's a puzzle still what to do about the infield. They've all had their moments. They all have their skills. Vientos, we assumed off of last year and particularly last October that he was going to be the guy at third base, but he has really struggled. I mean, of the 3, he is not played the best. I mean, he's been the worst of the 3, frankly. Beatty has been very solid defensively at third base, and that defense is something that they stress, so there is concern there on the Vientos, and you're right, Mauricio's been terrific, particularly off the bench in the series. It was great. I doubt they send him back. I can't imagine that they would, but he's probably in the mix, and there's probably a thought to play him every day, but I don't believe they will, and I hope they don't. I'm with you right there.
Yeah, the problem is Vientos doesn't have an option to go see like Alvarez if you could straighten him out in the minors, right? So he's on the roster. Beatty and Mauricio are the guys who have options. And so if you decide, hey, Marte got a little banged up with his knee, we need to keep an extra outfielder around, and it's Jankowski, it's got to be Beatty or it's got to be Mauricio. And I'm one who'd like to see Mauricio play. He's got a lot of tools. R5 tool producer is Tommy Hogan, who's the best. Helps us every week, jumps on whenever we need him. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. That really helps the show. Give a view of the New York Post Sports YouTube page, and always continue to stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.